Thank you very much. Now, I want you to do some imagining for me, okay? So, close your eyes and imagine you are in the sports day, school sports day, and you have got to run the 100-meter race, the sprint. And you think, yeah, I'm quite good at that. I'm quite good. So you've done a bit of training before that, and you come to the start line. You're crouching down, and to your left, you see 6 of your school friends. And you look at them and you think, you know what? I think I'm better than them. I reckon I got this race in the bag. I reckon I'm going to win. I think I'm faster than them. So, you're down on your knees. Start as orders. On your mark. Set. Go! Open your eyes. You're running. You look to your left. You're way ahead of everyone else. This is really exciting. You're ahead. You're going to win. But then you remember, there are 6 people there. You're running at 7. There are 8 people in this race. See that? Oh, there's one guy to the right of me, but he can't be very good. So you look to your right, and who do you see running with you? This guy. Usain Bolt, the fastest man who has ever lived. Do you think you're going to beat Usain Bolt? There is no way you can beat Usain Bolt. I couldn't beat Usain Bolt, so you definitely couldn't beat Usain Bolt. He is the fastest guy to have ever lived. Usain Bolt is absolutely unbeatable, no matter how hard you try. He is the unbeatable enemy. He has been beaten, he has. He has been beaten. But not by you. Now, I want you to remember that. The unbeatable enemy. There's nothing you can do. And today, in our true Bible story, we're going to see someone who looks absolutely unbeatable. But, a bit like Usain Bolt, perhaps he can be beaten. We'll find out. So, if you remember yesterday, we saw that God's people needed a king that God has chosen. A king with a heart that was for God. And what was the name of this king that God had chosen? Do you want to shout it out? David, fantastic. He was the king that God had chosen, the guy with a good heart. Now, in our true Bible story today, he's not yet king. Okay, he's been chosen by God, but he's not there yet. The king of Israel at the moment was a guy called King Saul, who we looked at yesterday. And he wasn't a very good king because he had a heart that wasn't for God. Now, God's people, the Israelites, they were facing a big problem because they were at war with a people called the Philistines. Can you say Philistines? The Philistines. And they were lined up so that the Israelites were on one hill, and then the Philistines were on the other hill. And there was a massive valley between them. Israelites, Philistines, 2 big armies. Who was going to win? It was a big fight. But then one day, the Israelites were in their camp, and they heard a big, loud, booming voice from across the valley. And the voice said, "Who is going to fight me?" The Israelites thought, what on earth was that? So they peeped out of their tents. And you know what they saw? It was the scariest soldier they had ever seen in their entire life. Let me describe him to you. He was absolutely massive. And actually, do you want to see him? Do you want to see this scary soldier? Shall we bring him out? Here he is. Look at that. This is a life-size picture of Goliath. That was his name. Look at him. How tall is he? He's over 3 meters tall. He can't even get under that bunting. He's going to come up to the stage. What can you see? You can see a massive spear. See the massive spear? The sword, the helmet, the armor. He had a javelin. to throw at people on his back. And you know what? His shield was so big, he had to get someone else to carry it in front of him. Now, look at Goliath. David was probably about my height, okay? Look at the height difference there. He's quite tall, isn't he? He's quite big. Do you think he looks beatable? Not at all. Look at him. Now, when the Israelites heard Goliath shout across the valley, "Who's going to fight me?" What do you think they did? They ran away. Because Goliath said this. He said, look, if you... Oh, sorry, I'll do my Goliath voice. If you can fight me and defeat me, then we will become your slaves. But if you fight me and I win, then you, Israelites, become our slaves. How scary is that? And the Israelites, they ran away scared. I would have run away scared, wouldn't you? So for 40 days, day in, day out, Goliath came out. He shouted across the valley, "Who's going to fight me?" And for 40 days, the Israelites ran away scared. But, you see, this is really important. If God's people were going to be free, they're going to be free of this massive enemy, they needed someone who was going to defeat their enemy, Goliath. Who was that going to be? Well, King David, maybe. Maybe David. Well, David, there was an issue because he wasn't actually in the army. His brothers were, but David wasn't. And it was David's job to get the lunch from his dad and take the food to his brothers, to the army there. So one day, David got all the packed lunches together and he went across to the Israelite camp. And as he was giving the food out to his brothers, what do you think he heard? A loud, deep, booming voice from across the valley shouting, "Who is going to fight me?" And David, he asked his brothers, "Brother, who is this? This guy who is mocking God and mocking God's people. He needs to be stopped." So his brothers told him all about Goliath and what was happening, and David ran to King Saul. He said to King Saul, "King Saul, don't you worry about Goliath anymore. I am going to fight Goliath. I'm going to do it." David was brave enough to fight him. But you know what? Once King Saul heard David say all this, what do you think he did? He laughed. He looked at David and he said, "David, you're only a boy. And this Goliath, have you seen him? He is massive. There is no way you, little David, can defeat massive Goliath." But then David said to him, "King Saul, I'm a shepherd, okay? And as a shepherd, some lions and bears have come to attack my sheep. And I have defeated the lions, and I've defeated the bears. And Goliath, he's going to be like the lion or the bear that I killed. Because he will die because he hates God and he hates God's people. God has saved me from the lion and the bear, so God is going to save me from Goliath." So King Saul gave David all his armor to put on. The armor didn't fit, so David took the armor off and went to face Goliath with a staff in his hand, a catapult, and 5 smooth stones from a river. It's not a lot, is it? Facing up against this guy. David, he walked up to Goliath. And Goliath, he was towering over David. He looked at him with his massive shield, his sword, his spear, his armor. And David looked up at Goliath with his catapult and his staff and no armor. Goliath looked at David and he laughed and he said, "David, you are only a boy. Come here. When I kill you, I'm going to feed you to the birds." But David wasn't scared. He said, "Goliath, let you come at me with your armor, with your weapons, with your massive shield. But listen here. My God is bigger. He is stronger, and he is more powerful than you. You have mocked God. And today, God is going to defeat you so that everyone in the world will know that my God is the one true God. The battle is his. So here we go, the showdown. David ran towards Goliath. Goliath ran towards David. David, he stopped and he got his catapult and he put a stone in the catapult and he slung it round. He slung it at Goliath and the stone hit Goliath in the forehead and buried deep inside. And Goliath fell down onto the floor, dead. The people's unbeatable enemy had been beaten. David ran, took Goliath's sword and cut Goliath's head off. This was the defeat. This was it. God's people were no longer captive by this great enemy. They were free. And the Israelites, they began cheering and cheering, and the Philistines were terrified and they ran away. By God's power and God's chosen king, the enemy was defeated. God's people needed a king who would defeat their enemy. That king was David.